The alarm blared at 6:30 a.m., and for the fifth time that week, Marcus hit snooze. When he finally dragged himself out of bed at 7:15, he had just 20 minutes to make it to his first class. Racing through his morning routine, he grabbed his backpack, still unpacked from yesterday, and rushed out the door without breakfast. As he sprinted across campus, a familiar sense of dread washed over him. He was going to be late. Again. Marcus slipped into the lecture hall 10 minutes after class had started, drawing disapproving glances from his classmates and a momentary pause from Professor Chen. Finding an empty seat at the back, he pulled out his laptop, only to discover the battery was dead. He hadn't charged it last night. As the lecture continued, Marcus tried to take notes on his phone, but his thoughts kept drifting. By the end of class, he had barely absorbed any of the material. This was becoming a pattern. Once a promising student with dreams of medical school, Marcus now found himself barely scraping by in his second year of pre-med. His GPA had slipped to a 2.8, and the passion that had once fueled his ambitions had dimmed to a flicker. The wall of his dorm room still displayed his acceptance letter and scholarship award, reminders of the student he used to be. After class, Marcus checked his phone and saw a missed call from his mother. He couldn't bring himself to call back. Their last conversation had ended in tension when she'd asked about his grades. How could he explain that he was failing, that he stayed up until 3 a.m. scrolling through social media instead of studying, that he'd started skipping meals and gym sessions? Walking back to his dorm, Marcus passed the campus coffee shop and spotted Aria, his lab partner from first year. She waved him over enthusiastically. "Haven't seen you at the study group lately," she said as he reluctantly joined her. "Been busy," he muttered, avoiding her eyes. "You okay, Marcus? You don't seem like yourself." Something about her genuine concern cracked the facade he'd been maintaining. Before he knew it, words were tumbling out. His struggles with classes, his deteriorating habits, his fading sense of purpose. Aria listened without judgment. When he finished, she said, "You know, I hit a similar wall last semester. Want to know what helped me?" That afternoon, instead of retreating to his dorm to nap, Marcus found himself in the academic counseling office with Aria. His counselor, Dr. Patel, asked him questions no one had asked in months. Not about his grades or his future, but about his well-being, his sleep, his support system. Academic difficulty is rarely just about academics, Dr. Patel explained. It's usually a symptom of something deeper. Together, they identified the real issues. Marcus had become isolated. He was overwhelmed by the competitive pre-med environment. He'd developed unhealthy coping mechanisms. Most importantly, he'd lost sight of why he wanted to become a doctor in the first place. That evening, Marcus stared at the mess of his dorm room, a physical manifestation of his mental state. Starting with one corner, he began to clean. It was small, but it was something he could control. As he organized his space, he found his old journal from freshman year, filled with excitement and purpose. The last entry was from 8 months ago. Impulsively, he opened to a fresh page and wrote, "Day 1 of getting back on track." The next morning, Marcus set his alarm for 6 a.m., not for class, but for himself. He went for a short run, something he hadn't done in months. The crisp morning air filled his lungs as he pushed through the initial discomfort. By the time he returned to his dorm, his mind felt clearer than it had in weeks. Change didn't happen overnight. There were still days when Marcus hit snooze or forgot assignments, but now, he had strategies. He joined Aria's study group, where he found not just academic support, but friendship. He started using a planner to break down overwhelming tasks into manageable steps. He scheduled regular check-ins with Dr. Patel. One weekend, Marcus ventured into the university's massive library, a place he'd avoided for months. He found a quiet corner surrounded by towering bookshelves that seemed to reach up endlessly. As sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across ancient tomes, Marcus felt a sense of wonder he hadn't experienced in a long time. To reward himself for a productive study session, Marcus visited the night market just off campus. The place was alive with energy neon signs reflected in rain puddles, steam rising from food stalls, and holographic advertisements illuminating the diverse crowd of students and locals alike. The sensory experience reminded him there was a world beyond his textbooks. Most importantly, he reconnected with his why. He volunteered at the campus health clinic, where he was reminded of the impact he wanted to make as a doctor. Each interaction with patients rekindled the passion that had been smothered under anxiety and self-doubt. During spring break, while his friends went to beach destinations, Marcus joined a university research expedition. They traveled to a remote location where he found himself standing on a hillside under a starry sky, witnessing bioluminescent phenomena that few people had ever seen. The experience made him feel both small and significant in the universe. When he returned to campus, Marcus found himself drawn to new routines. He discovered a small herb shop near his apartment run by an elderly woman who seemed to know exactly which teas would help with his stress and focus issues. The cozy space, with its labeled jars of ingredients and dried herbs hanging from ceiling beams, became a weekly stop in his schedule. For his elective course credit, Marcus participated in a cultural exchange program where visiting students showcased aerial performances. The event was held in a breathtaking venue that resembled a floating market, with interconnected platforms suspended above the campus lake. Colorful awnings, hanging lanterns, and performers using specialized equipment created an unforgettable spectacle against the sunset. 3 months into his turnaround, Marcus attended a guest lecture on sustainable urban development. The speaker's slides showed futuristic cities where architecture and nature merged harmoniously. Towering tree buildings with cascading gardens and clean energy technology integrated into beautiful designs. For the first time, Marcus considered how his medical ambitions might intersect with environmental health. For his biology project, Marcus chose to study underwater ecosystems. The department organized a field trip to a marine research facility where they observed a partially submerged ancient structure now serving as an artificial reef. Sunlight filtered through the clear tropical waters, creating mesmerizing patterns on the carved stone walls as colorful fish swam through ornate doorways. In his History of Science elective, Marcus became fascinated with the Victorian era of scientific discovery. The professor had recreated a period-accurate laboratory filled with brass instruments and chemistry apparatus. During a practical demonstration, electrical arcs jumped between copper coils, casting dramatic blue-white light across the antique equipment. Marcus found himself drawing parallels between those early pioneers and his own journey of discovery. As part of a cultural exchange program, Marcus attended a traditional ceremony at the Japanese garden on campus. There, beneath flowering cherry trees beside a tranquil lake, an elder told stories of ancient dragons and the wisdom they represented. The mist curling around distant pagodas created an atmosphere that transported Marcus far from his academic pressures. In the university's interdisciplinary innovation hub, Marcus encountered a graduate student working on what they jokingly called time travel research. The workshop contained an eclectic mix of devices from different eras, ancient scrolls beside holographic displays, mechanical clockwork next to quantum computers. The passion with which the researcher explained their work inspired Marcus. On a geology field trip, Marcus helped document a remarkable discovery. Their professor had located what appeared to be an ancient mechanical construct, partially buried in desert sands. As students carefully excavated and documented hieroglyphs on the metal structure, the setting sun cast long shadows across the site, giving Marcus a profound sense of connection to both past and future scientific discoveries. For his marine biology course, Marcus participated in a virtual reality simulation of an underwater civilization. The detailed program showed how architecture might be built into massive coral reefs, with bioluminescent elements complementing natural formations. The experience of navigating through bubble elevators and current channels sparked a paper idea that would later earn him special recognition. One night, unable to sleep before a big exam, Marcus took a midnight walk and found himself in a secluded campus garden. Mushrooms cultivated by the botany department formed the perfect circle, their bioluminescent properties casting an ethereal glow. Sitting within this natural phenomenon, Marcus found the calm he needed to organize his thoughts. In his science fiction and technology ethics class, students were asked to design future living spaces. Marcus created a model of a Mars colony with Art Deco influences, curved lines and bold colors within a massive transparent dome. The contrast between maintained beauty inside and the harsh red landscape outside became a metaphor in his essay about maintaining one's internal well-being despite external challenges. During a weekend outdoor education retreat, Marcus helped build a temporary treehouse learning platform in a redwood forest. Multiple connected platforms housed different activity stations, with spiral staircases and rope bridges connecting them. As dappled sunlight filtered through the canopy, Marcus led a session on first aid basics. Back in his apartment, which he now shared with 2 other pre-med students, Marcus had created a space that balanced technology with natural elements. His smart lighting system was programmed to mimic natural daylight cycles. Plants thrived on every surface, and his digital study tools were organized alongside carefully selected physical books. The harmony of the space reflected his new balanced approach to life. For his anthropology minor, Marcus joined a weekend archaeological dig where they uncovered artifacts from an ancient civilization. As the setting sun cast long shadows across the excavation site, Marcus carefully documented hieroglyphs, while others excavated components of what might have been an advanced irrigation system. The professor praised his methodical approach. When the biology department opened their new greenhouse laboratory, Marcus applied for a research assistant position. He found himself working alongside botanical specialists, cultivating hybrid plants with medicinal properties. The facility's glass walls showcased different biomes, while specialized growth chambers contained experimental specimens. The project perfectly aligned with his interest in natural pharmaceuticals. For a cognitive science project, Marcus helped design an experiment in what the department called their cybernetic garden, a space where robotic pollinators interacted with specially engineered plants. Through macrophotography, Marcus documented how these mechanical insects navigated the hybrid flora. The close-up images revealed circuit-like patterns within leaves and subtle mechanical components that had been integrated with the natural elements. During a university-sponsored cultural festival, Marcus volunteered at the International Harbor Simulation, where students from various backgrounds recreated a fantasy port city. Different ships represented cultural traditions, while merchants exchanged knowledge instead of goods. The immersive experience helped Marcus appreciate the importance of diverse perspectives in healthcare. In astronomy class, Marcus participated in an overnight observation session at the university's Hilltop Observatory. The facility was built on a series of connected platforms that optimized viewing angles. Using both traditional telescopes and advanced digital imaging, they mapped constellations during a rare meteor shower. The professor noted Marcus's thoughtful questions about celestial mechanics. For his comparative religion course, Marcus attended a demonstration of disciplined movement practices across cultures. The session was held in a modern martial arts dojo surrounded by cherry blossom gardens. The instructor showed how different traditions had developed unique movement patterns, some leaving almost visible trails of energy as participants performed ancient sequences. Marcus found parallels between this disciplined practice and his renewed approach to studying. While researching for a literature paper, Marcus discovered that the old wing of the university library contained hidden architectural features. A librarian showed him how certain bookshelves concealed passage entrances to reading rooms designed for solitary study. In one such room, dust motes danced in beams of light, filtering through antique windows, creating an atmosphere perfect for deep concentration. During an urban exploration club outing, Marcus discovered a hidden wonder in their city, a historical clockwork installation inside a mountain exhibition hall. The massive mechanical display featured gears turning silently to power miniature brass buildings, while visitor gondolas moved through the exhibit on narrow water channels. The engineering marvel reminded Marcus of the complex, interconnected systems he was studying in anatomy. For a mindfulness workshop organized by Student Services, Marcus attended sessions in the campus meditation garden. The landscape architect had created spaces where reality seemed to fold into contemplative dimensions, paths that created optical illusions, and seating areas that framed perfect views of both distant mountains and intimate flower details. The techniques he learned there became essential to his pre-exam routine. In his environmental biology lab, students were monitoring a research preserve where technology had been harmoniously integrated with forest management. Trees displayed subtle circuit-like patterns from special monitoring systems, while holographic canopies displayed real-time data. Marcus was fascinated by how the deer moved unhurriedly past the technology, seemingly unaffected by these gentle innovations. When the university held its annual arts festival, Marcus attended performances on the specially constructed floating platforms. Each connected island showcased different artistic disciplines: musicians, painters, dancers, all performing simultaneously but harmoniously. As he watched dancers move through choreographed light displays, Marcus realized how different academic disciplines could similarly complement each other. For his History of Astronomy project, Marcus gained special access to the university's historical observatory tower during a planetary alignment. Inside, ancient star charts covered the walls, while a massive telescope extended through the open ceiling. As the celestial event unfolded, Marcus stood silhouetted against the phenomenon, feeling a profound connection to generations of scientists who had observed the skies before him. At the semester-end formal, Marcus found himself in the elegantly restored historic ballroom. The university tradition brought together current students and alumni spanning decades, creating a living timeline of the institution's history. Under floating chandeliers, Marcus conversed with graduates from the 70s, 90s, and recent years, gaining perspective on how the pre-med journey had evolved and how some challenges remained universal. For an unusual microbiology field trip, the class visited a research facility built within a vast cave system, where scientists studied fungi ecosystems. The subterranean environment featured massive mushroom formations that created natural infrastructure, while specially designed spore lanterns provided ambient lighting. Marcus was fascinated by the researchers' explanations of mycelium networks and their communication properties. During a weekend geology excursion to volcanic regions, Marcus's group visited a wildlife sanctuary dedicated to preserving endangered bird species that thrived in the warm environment. The sanctuary was built high among obsidian rock formations, where specialized habitats had been created. Caretakers in heat-resistant gear monitored eggs, while mature birds with brilliant plumage soared between peaks, their feathers catching the light like living flames. For his unique interdisciplinary course that combined engineering and medicine, Marcus toured a state-of-the-art prosthetics workshop. The laboratory space resembled a hybrid between traditional craftsmanship and futuristic technology. Molten materials were poured into intricate molds, while precision laser tools calibrated electronic components. Marcus could envision multiple career paths that might bring him back to such innovative spaces. As final exams approached, Marcus spent an evening studying beneath his favorite campus landmark, an ancient oak tree whose widespread branches had sheltered generations of students. Someone had strung fairy lights throughout its lower branches, creating a magical atmosphere. Other students had joined him, forming an impromptu study group. Knowledge seemed to flow between them like the gentle breeze through the leaves. The night before his last exam, Marcus visited the university's Special Collections Library, where an exhibition on knowledge systems throughout history captivated him. Books floated in organized constellations within specialized display cases, while pathways formed elegant patterns connecting different epochs of human understanding. The curator, an emeritus professor with an ethereal presence, explained how certain ideas transcended time and culture. As finals week ended, Marcus sat in the same lecture hall where his journey had begun months earlier, but everything felt different. He arrived early, his materials prepared, his notes were thorough, his questions thoughtful. After class, Professor Chen, who had barely noticed him before, asked if he would consider becoming a teaching assistant next semester. "Your transformation has been remarkable," she said. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." That evening, Marcus called his mother. The conversation flowed easily as he shared his progress, not just his improved grades, but his improved well-being. The pride in her voice mirrored the pride he was beginning to feel in himself. As the semester ended, Marcus reflected on his journey while updating his resume. His GPA had climbed to a 3.2, not perfect, but a substantial improvement. More significant were the intangible changes: his renewed sense of purpose, his healthier habits, his strengthened relationships. At the Pre-Med Society's year-end gathering, Marcus found himself sharing his experience with a first-year student who was showing the same signs of burnout he had displayed months earlier. "The hardest part isn't the workload," Marcus told him. "It's remembering who you are and why you're here when things get tough." Later, walking back to his dorm under a canopy of stars, Marcus thought about how far he'd come. He wasn't perfect. No one was. There would be more challenges ahead. Medical school applications loomed on the horizon, along with the MCAT and increasingly difficult coursework. But he had learned something more valuable than any single academic achievement: resilience. He had discovered that failure wasn't falling down, it was staying down, and he had no intention of staying down again. As he reached his building, his phone buzzed with a message from Area. "Study group tomorrow, we're tackling organic chemistry." Marcus smiled as he replied, "I'll bring the coffee and my molecular model kit." That night, before bed, he added another entry to his journal: "A habit he had faithfully maintained since day one. This entry was shorter than most, but perhaps the most meaningful. Day 1, 27. Still on track. Still growing. Still me. Marcus set his alarm for 6 a.m., placed his phone on the charger, and fell asleep with a sense of peace that had once seemed impossible. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he was ready to face them. One day, one decision, one small victory at a time.